All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming to my webinar this afternoon. This is WordPress Skills Seminar, Beyond the Basics. For those who I haven't worked with before, my name is Hirsch Fishman. I'm a web designer who does a lot of work with synagogues. I have a background in web design, web development, and WordPress. I've been working with synagogues and the Jewish community since about 2001, and specifically I've been designing synagogue websites for about 5 years now. And my own experiences as a synagogue member are what inform my decisions when building and designing synagogue websites. For more information, you can find out on my website at synagogue-websites.com. Just a quick word about our sponsor, Chaverware. They are the gold standard in synagogue membership software. Their system can be run in a Windows environment or through an online portal and can easily integrate with popular accounting systems such as QuickBooks and Sage 50 Accounting. You can visit chaverware.com for more information. Normally, I would ask everybody to mute their microphones, but I actually want this to be a participatory event, so it would help if you guys could unmute your microphones. That way to ask questions as they come up. I have gotten a list of some topics that people want to cover in terms of using WordPress and some advanced plugins and that sort of thing. And then, as we go along, if anybody has any questions or would like me to discuss anything else, I'd certainly be glad to. If you don't have a microphone, you can chat your questions in, yes. So now I'm going to go over here to this. I set up a test dashboard for the purposes of our webinar. Now, a couple people have asked me about using the popular Event Manager plugin, which is one that I usually recommend for synagogues to have an event management system and a calendar on their website. There are a couple things that I want to talk about. The first is having an event submission form that people can see on the front end of the website. So what you can do, the plugin actually makes available a lot of different short codes that you can use on pages. So what you can do to do this, whoops, we'll just say submit an event. You can type this short code that says event form, and then we're going to publish the page here. And if I go to the page, what you're going to see is just an event submission form. And what happens is that when somebody fills this out, it gets added right into the event management system within the WordPress dashboard. Two is it gets moderated, so it's not going to actually be posted to the website until an administrator approves it. And three, it lets a person detail all the information that you would normally gather for them. So you can gather the event name, the date and time, the location, the details of the event, if they want to upload a featured image, that sort of thing. And also if they want to enable bookings, and what the plugin is referring to is registration or event RSVPs. Now this can be very handy, say you have a lot of constituent groups within the synagogue, such as sisterhood, men's club, the youth department, that sort of thing, where rather than you having to enter all the events into the system, they can do it for you. And then you'll get notified when an event has been posted, and if everything looks good, you can then go and moderate it and publish it to the website. Now the next topic is using a featured events category to do a targeted display of events. Now within the events plugin, what you can do, there's a link here for event categories. What you can do is you can create a category called featured events, or it could be homepage events or whatever you really want to call it. And we're just going to add our category. Now the important thing is that there's going to be an ID number here over in this column, in the right column. The ID number here is 2. So what we can do, the Event Manager plugin has a widget that you can use. And what you can do is you can drop that widget into a sidebar, be it on an internal page or on your home page or anything like that. So here's our event widget. We're just going to drag this over here to the top of the default sidebar. And you can see here's a whole bunch of fields. And in particular, there's one field here for category IDs. So we're just going to enter in the ID number of the category that we want to display, and we're going to hit save.
Oh, this is...
And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the test site over here. We're going to scroll down, and you can see here's our events widget right at the top. What I'm going to do is add a new event. And we'll just choose the date and time over here, just like you normally would for any event. And the key is that in the right column, there's a box labeled event categories. What you have to do, just check off this box for featured events and just hit publish.
Put it in the minion ears at the top. Yeah, they just left 2 minutes ago. Ooh.
Forgot to add a location, so I'm just going to check the box that says this event does not have a location. And I'm just going to publish the event again.
Thank you for this. Lisa's
And now what happens is if I were to refresh this screen, you can see that here's our event. Now this is really useful because you can create categories for many things on the website, be it for the men's club, for sisterhood, for youth, for religious school, for really anything that you can imagine. And you can use this widget in many different ways to call in events from each of those particular sections.
Oh, well.
Now, one other thing that the plugin makes useful, if there's any questions about what are called placeholders, within the events section here, there's a help page. And this shows you all the different placeholders that the plugin makes available, which can pull data from the event. So you can see here, there's all sorts of placeholders for the event details, for date, for time, for the event image. You start getting into all sorts of things for the bookings, the contact information. If you scroll down, there's ones for the location information, all that sort of thing. Now, where this is useful is one in the settings for the event plugin in the formatting. So I'm going to go here to settings, and there's a formatting tab. And if I were to click on events, you can then see, scrolling down here, the single event page format. You can see here's all of our placeholders that dynamically pull the information right from the database. Now, another place this is useful is back to that widget that I had showed you. And you can see here, there's a little field for the list item format. And you could put in whatever placeholders you want there. You could put in a featured image. You could put in the location. You can put in anything you want. It'll pull it dynamically. So that's very useful. And if you have any questions about some of that stuff, just look through the page. There's lots of information there. Now, while we're on this widgets page, I also wanted to just discuss widgets in general. So widgets are drag and drop content blocks. By default, there's a lot of different ones that come with WordPress, and then there's also lots of plugins that you can install that specifically are widgets or make widgets available. Now, one thing in particular, this was actually an upgrade with the most recent version of WordPress. Their default text edit widget here. It used to be just for HTML, but what they've done, I'm just going to drag this to the top of the column here. They actually gave us a very basic visual editor here, where you can just add some basic text, use bold, italicized, that sort of thing. Now, one thing I do recommend if you want a more advanced widget, there's a plugin out there, and I'm going to go to my list of plugins here. It's called, let's see, so you don't have it installed here. It's actually called, it's a visual editor widget. So just give me 1 second here. Let's see if this comes up. And here it is. It's the Black Studio Tiny MCE widget. Now, what this does is it gives you a more advanced visual editor for your widget. So it's down here at the very bottom. It says Visual Editor. And if I move this over into place, you'll see that this is the same visual editor as you would see when you're editing a page, post, event, really any other content type that you might have on the website. You could add content blocks, you could add photos, you know, that sort of thing. Now, many widgets are for things that will pull dynamically from the database. So, for example, here, there's a widget here this is a default one that comes with WordPress. It's for categories. It will show the categories that you're using on your blog or, that sort of thing. There's also ones for archives and, lots of other things. My point being that not all widgets are just like a basic visual editor. A lot of them are ones that you can configure, and it'll just pull the information dynamically from the database. Now, one question that comes up frequently with widgets is how can I create unique sidebars for a particular page? There's a plugin that I have installed here. It's called literally Custom Sidebars, and you can search for it in the WordPress plugin repository. And it lets you create a unique sidebar for each page. So you'll see here that there's a blue button. I'm going to say Create Unique Sidebar, and you just can name this to go with your page. You then have a unique sidebar area that you can apply to any page or anything like that. Now, once you've created a page and populated it with whatever widgets you want, if you were to go over here to Pages and say we're going to edit our sample page right here, if you look at the bottom of the right column here, there's a box over here labeled Sidebars. And it says here you can replace the default sidebars. Simply select what sidebar you want to show for this post. So in place of the blog sidebar, we're using the default WordPress theme. It only has one sidebar. We're going to choose to show the one for the test page instead. And then you can just update or publish your page. And if you have the sidebar in your theme, then whatever is there will override the contents of the default sidebar that normally show. So that can be very useful for putting blocks of content on specific pages on your website. Again, like Sisterhood, for example, or Men's Club, or, anything like that. If they need unique content blocks, then you can certainly do that using this plugin. Now, the next question that people have asked me is about sharing buttons and which ones are useful to have on the website. And there's a plugin that I've installed. There's called Add This, which is one of the most popular social media sharing toolbar buttons out there. And I'm just going to click on this to go to their settings. Oops, I actually want the home link. Well, once you sign in, actually, there will be all sorts of settings here that you can then see if I can let me sign in. Oops. Well, that's interesting. But in any case, it will allow you to configure a social media sharing toolbar, which you can then position on pages, posts, your home page, category pages, anything like that. And you can also determine which social media sharing icons should appear in that toolbar, be it liking it on Facebook, sharing it on Twitter, sharing it on Facebook, anything like that. It also comes with print buttons, email buttons, that sort of thing. So it can be very useful on all of your pages. It's a good way to integrate your website with social media. So that's a list of questions that people have posed to me in advance. Now I'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions about what I've talked about so far, or if there's any questions about other advanced features or doing something else in WordPress that I can answer.
This is Merle. I'd like to see
And you can just use the chat feature, or you can unmute your microphone and just ask it to everybody in the meeting.
Okay, I'm on my phone for the sound. I don't have a mic on my computer. Are there
any questions I can cover about forms or donation forms or image sliders or anything like that? I'd be glad to.
Okay.
First, can you hear the question from Merle?
Okay, two questions. One, I'd like to see what the published page looks like with the sidebar widget, and also on our side, you have added for donation forms drop-down menu.
I cannot hear Merle, actually. So, Merle, can you use the chat feature to write your question?
Okay, where is that? Can you hear me now? I don't know where. Oh. How do I do the chat feature?
One thing I will mention to familiarize yourselves with, if you're not already, is the plugins repository. And what you can do if you're searching for new plugins to add here, there's a ton of plugins that are out there. If you're looking for something, I can certainly recommend a plugin, or there's plenty of ones you could just research in here just by typing in your keyword, or just clicking through the list of popular tags down here. You can also upload any plugins in case you download them or purchase them elsewhere, that sort of thing. Now, I think there was a question about viewing the page with the new sidebar on it, the one that I had mentioned. So we're going to come here to pages. And I believe we had done the sample page. So I'm just going to open up that page in a new tab here. Now, it's not showing the sidebar because we haven't added any widgets to it. So one thing we can do now, we're going to go into our appearance in our widgets section. And now we have to add some widgets over here. So for example, we're going to drag our visual editor over here into this widget. And we're going to add some content here and save it. And now if we refresh the screen, what will happen, interesting, we'll try applying this to some of the other widget areas and see what happens. So here's our widget actually showing up in the bottom areas here. It doesn't matter which widget area you're placing this in for. It'll show up wherever you want it to go. And that all depends on the design and the template that you're using. Right. Okay, so the next question is some other calendar plugins that might be out there. I usually recommend this Event Manager plugin. There's also one called the Event Calendar that's out there. This is actually a premium plugin, so I'm just going to Google it. Now, this does a lot of the similar functionality. I've used this before, and it's a good plugin to use. So it's certainly something worth considering if you're looking for a new calendar plugin. Their website is literally theeventscalendar.com. So feel free to check it out and see if it might work for your synagogue's needs. And I think those are probably some of the two big event plugins. Actually, there's a third one that I've used before. It's called Events Espresso. This is also a good one as well. It's a premium plugin, so you have to pay for it, whereas the Event Manager plugin is free with an optional Pro add-on. So it's something worth considering, but it's also a very robust system that works just as well as any of the other ones that I mentioned. Now, does anybody maybe have any questions about some plugins or anything like that that's being used on their website that you might find useful to talk about? Right, so somebody had a question about an SSL certificate. That would actually be added through the hosting account. What you need to do is you need to purchase that through, wherever your domains may be registered. So say you have your domain registered in GoDaddy, you can purchase an SSL certificate through them. What you can do once that's purchased and everything and set up to work, it can be installed on your hosting account. And then you can just need to change the WordPress settings so that the site loads at the secure URL. To change the WordPress settings, if you come down here just to settings and then click on general. Well, this is actually, okay, so it's not showing on mine because I'm using a part of a WordPress multi-site network. But if you're not, then you're just using a standalone WordPress site, there will be a field here for the URL. And you can change the URL to whatever it is that you want. So if it's changing it from the unsecure version to the secure version of the URL.
Hirsch, what's the implication?
Any other questions?
Hirsch, what's the implication of having SSL certification?
If anybody's having trouble with their microphone, maybe try using the chat feature. So in terms of the implication of having an SSL certificate, in terms of the site itself, it doesn't do anything to the look of the site or the content or the WordPress dashboard. The only thing it does is that it loads it at a secure URL. So for example, you can see up here in the top corner of my URL bar, it's showing that it's loading at HTTPS and loading at the secure URL. So Google is actually recommending now that site owners use an SSL certificate to secure their websites. One, I think this is just because for security reasons. In Chrome, they will actually show a message up here that says the site is unsecure if you don't show it. So if you want to head off at the pass, any congregants who might be asking about that, then it's certainly worth doing. Especially because if they're using Chrome, then they're going to see a message that the website is unsecure. The other factor is that they've made whether your site is secured a factor in their search algorithm. So it's being weighted along with the title tags, the site name, keywords, that sort of thing, for whether your site is showing up. So if you're looking to optimize your website for search engine purposes, it's just a good idea to secure the site with the SSL certificate. Okay, so we're talking about the SSL certificate. Any other questions that anybody might have? Yes. So for those of you who are using WordPress templates through the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, I do provide support to those synagogues through the USCJ to anybody who's using them. So I think that's how I've interacted with a bunch of you. But that certainly is available. I do provide support for those synagogues. One other plugin I do want to show you guys quickly, which is very useful, is in terms of keeping the site running smoothly. There's a very popular plugin here called WP Optimize, and what this does, it gives you a little utility that will help clean up the database. You can see here, there's all these options. It will clean out some of the post revisions, spam comments, orphaned data. It'll optimize the database tables just to help keep the website running as smoothly as possible. This is worth running maybe every couple months. 2 to 3 months just to keep everything running smoothly. I've used it on all the websites that I build for clients and on my own websites, and it does seem to do the trick. Now, along these lines, another plugin that is useful when to keep the website running quickly is this plugin called, I'll show you here quickly. It's called Minify HTML. What that does is basically, if I were to view the website here and then view the source code, you can see it's all bunched together in one big bunch with no line breaks or anything like this. This actually helps in the load time for the site as the browser processes it. So that's useful to do. It's one of those plugins that you can just install, activate, and there's nothing else that you need to do. Now, in terms of what the database specifically is, WordPress it's a content management system, and it runs on a database. So there's all these tables and all sorts of the structure to it. And what, for example, the WP Optimize plugin does is it cleans out some of the for lack of a better term, junk stuff in the database to keep it running as smoothly as possible. Because over time, what can happen as you have lots of pages, lots of events, lots of posts, anything like that, it's just more and more data that the web server is then trying to load and sift through as it's loading your website. So that will help keep the website running nice and quickly. There is no danger of losing something with this plugin. It just does it all in the background. I would stay on the screen while it's running, but it usually takes about a minute or two at most to go through everything, and then it'll just say that the optimization is complete. Now, one thing that's also useful along these lines, if you happen to be using an event plugin, I'm going to go back here to the list of events. If you've been using this over time for a while, you're probably going to have a lot of past events that have dropped off the calendar here. You can see that this is only showing future events right now. Here's the filter, and if you wanted to filter it by past events or today, tomorrow, events this month, that sort of thing. Now, if you have a lot of past events, maybe years worth of past events, it might be worth going through your event system, selecting past events and cleaning all of those out. Just go in and delete them and then empty them from the trash. That will remove all the stuff from the database, and again, just keep it nice and as clean as possible, and just not lots of extraneous information just sitting there. Now, in terms of somebody else asked a question about using or removing the. There was some tagline about powered by WordPress or something like that. Specifically for the events calendar, if you go here to the general settings, on the first page, there's an area for general options. And if you scroll down here to the bottom, the other ones where it says show some love, this is just the developer wants a little credit for it. You can just check that to no, and that will turn it off from showing. Now, if we're going back to the website, another thing that might be useful is to change this little tagline here that says just another Attica website site. You can do that in the general WordPress settings. Say your synagogue or your organization has a tagline. You come here to the general settings page, and there's a field for tagline, and you can say that to whatever you want. Serving the I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, so I'm going to say Raleigh community. Something like that. And when you just save the changes, all these things, it automatically generates. So it's going to change once I hit the refresh button. Now, this little message about being proudly powered by WordPress, this is just because you're using the default WordPress theme. I think that's just going to come with it naturally. If you're using any other theme, then it's going to show whatever is in the footer, or if it's a custom designed theme, then it's going to show copyright, contact information, that sort of thing. Any other questions that anybody has? So, Ellen, you were asking something about the tagline. Is it only on the homepage? That depends on the theme, for example. Again, this is just the default WordPress theme. Probably this whole header area does appear on every page on the site, but it depends on the template that you're using. Another question that people often ask me, which maybe is of curiosity to anybody here, in terms of Google Analytics and showing the traffic that is being reported on your website. Now, there are plugins that will show it that information within the WordPress dashboard. I've found that they don't work. They kind of tend to slow things down. So what I normally recommend is that, well, first of all, always set up Google Analytics for your website. But what you can do, you can easily just go to their website directly and view the reports right in their dashboard. That way you can see the full extent of everything. So if you haven't already set up Google Analytics, it's very useful to do. You just go to google.com/analytics. For anybody who I've worked with before, it's already set up on your website, so it's been recording data since the website went live. So that shouldn't be a concern. And you can then go right into their dashboard and you can view all the reports and see lots of information about how people are using your website. Somebody has a question about a cost for SSL certificates. There is a cost, yeah. You have, it's an annual fee. It depends on who you're purchasing it from. For example, for GoDaddy, who I usually recommend for hosting, their SSL certificates range from probably about maybe like $55 a year on special to $65 a year, you know, that sort of thing. So it all depends. So, you know, there are places out there that might sell them cheaper, or you can find coupons for GoDaddy or any other hosting provider, that sort of thing. But there is a cost for it, much like there's a cost for the hosting or domain registration, you know, that sort of thing. Is there another plugin that works like Google Analytics? There might be. There's plenty of other analytical tracking softwares out there as well. Google Analytics, I think, is just one of the most popular. Certainly, it's free, so that, you know, that's a selling point as well. So that's worth considering. I see another question about templates for early childhood centers at a synagogue. I personally don't have any templates for those. They can be custom designed as well. For early childhood centers, when I'm designing a website for them, I like to do with bright colors, big pictures, you know, that sort of thing, because it's a little more of a fun audience, and you know, you're designing for your audience. Now, one thing that can be done if you wanted a separate website for your early childhood center, for your preschool or whatever, is setting up a WordPress multi-site network. Now, what this does is it gives you an extra layer of control over several WordPress websites. It ties them all together. This particular website that I'm using as a test is actually part of a WordPress multi-site network that I have set up for all of my websites. I have 3 separate ones. Now, what you can then do is you can then get to any of the dashboards through this top layer of control. Each entity can also have its own dashboard. So like your early childhood center can have their completely own separate dashboard. But what happens is that the synagogue and the people there, there's still a layer of administrative control over it. So if somebody needs to get in it and update it, you can do that as well. It just helps keep things consolidated and a little more efficient for, you know, managing the websites. All right, so in terms of online registration forms, there are bunches of different form plugins out there. On any website that I'm building, I'm using a plugin called Gravity Forms, which is one of the more popular form plugins out there. If you've used any sort of form builder before, then it's probably nothing too unfamiliar to you. Oops, pardon me while I just register this. All right, so we're going to create a form. You can see over on the right, there's all these fields that you can add. Your standard form fields, single line text, paragraphs, if you want a select box, check boxes, radio buttons, that sort of thing. There's also all sorts of advanced fields here for name, email, address. The address one's actually kind of cool because if you click it, it has all the information right there for street address, city, state, zip code, country, that sort of thing. Post fields, unless you're doing a form where people are submitting something right to a content type within the dashboard, chances are you're not going to use any of those. But for payment forms, the next section is actually very useful, so pricing fields. So what you can do, first of all, I'm going to remove my address field here. Say you wanted to build a donation form. When you add the product field, this can be used for, say you wanted, a ticket for a dinner, for example. And the cost per ticket is $20. People can just fill in the quantity that they need. That's all there is to it. Another thing you can do with this product field, in this area where it says field type, there's lots of different options here. You can do a drop down with different options, each one having its own price. You can do radio buttons, which are basically the same thing in another format. Or for donations, you can do a user-defined price where people can fill in their own price or their own donation amount, anything like that. Now with Gravity Forms, if anybody has worked with me directly, I have a developer license for Gravity Forms, so I am installing that when I set this up. And with that comes all sorts of add-ons that you can install. Many of these add-ons integrate with popular payment gateways. So there's ones for Authorize.net, PayPal, Stripe, that sort of thing, which you can then use with your form. Now, if we haven't worked together and you say you already have a Gravity Forms installation there, or you're already paying for it, you might want to see if you have a license for it and you have access to this as well. Now, we're just going to activate this. So I'm going to show the Authorize.net one, for example. So I'm going to come over here. I did see one question quickly about it. Is Gravity Forms compatible with SchulCloud or maybe Cleverware or some of those other systems? The answer is no. Those are proprietary systems, so those are closed. So there's nothing that can really be done to integrate with some of them. That being said, with Cleverware, for example, they do give you an iframe code. So if you're using Cleverware, you probably wouldn't build a form like this on your website because everything would be done through Cleverware. But I do want to show you something quickly. Let's go to the services section here. And I have a demonstration of this on my website. So here's the iframe for Cleverware. Once your congregant signs in, they're going to see the full account profile, and they'll be able to do everything that they normally would. And the nice thing is that it's on an iframe right on your website where they don't have to go anywhere. Now, they can also create a guest account, or you can also donate without an account, which is useful for just guests or anything like that. Now, I think you have to contact them directly to obtain the iframe code. So I would just shoot them an email, and they should be able to give you the code, which you can then just drop into your website. To go back to the forms quickly, so once we have our form here, we're just going to add a product field. So this is Authorize.net, so we're going to add a product field. And then you also need the credit card field. What happens in order to get it working with Authorize.net, and the same thing applies to PayPal or Stripe, or there's also ways of integrating QuickBooks and that sort of thing. There's going to be a section here under settings, and what you need to do is you set up a feed from authorize.net, or I'm sorry, from the form to authorize.net. And basically, it'll just match up the billing fields so that the billing information that's used to authenticate the credit card. And you just save it, and that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. Now, say if this could be used to build forms for your religious school, or you know, maybe some event, or just a random form, maybe people purchasing like a memorial brick, that sort of thing, then this is very useful. Anybody have any other questions? Yes, so the webinar is being recorded. Once we're done here, I will send out an email with a link to the webinar and to the video where you can view it. And certainly I'm available as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. For those synagogues who are using the WordPress set up through the United Synagogue, we actually do offer the payment forms as something that I can set up for you. Just contact me afterwards, and I can set that up in your WordPress installation. All right, well, if nobody has any further questions, we will wrap up. No more questions. Most of you have my contact information already. If not, my email address is hirsch@synagogwebsites.com. My phone is 919-438-2180. And then my website is synagogue-websites.com. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you found this useful. Have a good afternoon.